Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here.
I would love if you would just start with why you do what you do. Like,
Mm,
where's the passion come from for working with couples? And
yeah.
yeah,
Um, so I'm a couples therapist. My practice is about 95% couples. I have a few stragglers. And I always tell people who want individual therapy with me that I'm not good at it. I don't like it. It's not my jam.
I'm
Um,
exactly on
I'm
the same page with you.
I'm
Yeah,
not your best bet. So
yeah,
the folks that I do have are usually people who have been part of a couple, but then one of them has opted out of therapy either because they divorced or they decided it wasn't going to work, and then the other one kind of decided to stay with me. So but the reason that's true is because when I was training as a therapist, I I was good at it. I had an aptitude for it. I had some basic skills that all my professors sort of were like, yeah, you can do this. But again, I just didn't like it. I didn't feel it just wasn't energizing for me until this guy brought his wife in. I was a
mm,
graduate assistant, and this student brought his wife in to solve an acute issue, and my whole body lit up. My whole like I just immediately understood. Oh, this I can do. This I
yeah.
like, and so I just immediately started kind of investing in that corner of the work, and I think couples therapy is actually an entirely different thing than personal therapy.
Yeah.
I have a personal therapist who I love. I meet with her every other week. She's amazing. I cannot do what she does.
Right.
And I don't even know what she does. I just know that it
You
works
just
for
know
me.
yeah, it's working. You know,
Um,
what's funny when I think it must have been, I was in my internship, so 2008, 2009, something like that. And there was a psychotherapy network article, and the whole cover was, why don't therapists like all the reasons therapists don't like couples therapy.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
every single thing they listed was exactly why I love it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And
And it's like,
I think you ought to love it.
yeah,
Or you ought to hate it.
yeah,
I don't think you should be, like I don't think you should have like a kind of I'll do it. It's fine. Like I can do it if you want. Or sometimes I see couples and sometimes I don't. Like I think you should say nope, I don't do couples therapy, or yes, I only do couples therapy. And I don't really. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are effective in the middle, but I
right,
just
right,
that wouldn't work for me.
right. I hear
Yeah.
you. All right. So if we're talking about negative sentiment override, could
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
start by defining that and like where does it come from? Like
Yeah.
how does
Uh,
this work?
so that story I was telling you about how my body lit up. The next thing I did was look into the Gottman Institute, which is here in Seattle where I live. I called them on the phone because that's how you reached people in 2001,
Right.
you know. And I said, "What can I do? Can I do anything at all?" And they put me to work. I was filing paperwork. I was doing like research interviews. I was taking little offshoot courses here and there. So I started training with the Gottman Institute, and that's where I kind of first came across really everything I know about the empirical side of couples work. I mean, um, and as a primer, I mean, if you're listening to a show or if you're attentive to couples therapy, you know John Gottman's name, you understand where he fits in kind of the world. But just quick primer, he did all this research to help understand, and he didn't want to help anybody. He wasn't actually trying to help couples. He just wanted to
Right.
learn. And so over 40 years or so, he did all this observational research in a longitudinal way and correlated behaviors that stayed together, behaviors that were existed for couples that stayed together, and then behaviors that existed for couples that were splitting up or who were miserable. And one of the metrics that was part of that whole study was a metric around positive and negative sentiment override. So couples got like a score, and
Mm,
they were either kind of above the line or below the line. And if they were above the line, they got a PSO score, so a positive sentiment override score. If they were below the line, they got a negative sentiment override score, and sort of was able to see and track how whether and how couples moved above and below the line. And the line basically represents this question of whether or not there's more positive than negative sentiment in the relationship. When there's more positive sentiment in the relationship, everything is easier. Neutral things take on a positive energy, negative things lose their power. When there's more negative than positive sentiment in a relationship, everything is harder. Neutral things take on a negative energy, positive things lose their power. And so there's this target, I guess, in doing empirical work anyway, to get people above the line, to move
Mm-hmm.
people above the line, or to grapple with the reality of what are the consequences of being
Right.
below the line.
What's going to happen if you're below the
Yeah.
line? So when you
Yeah.
say sentiment, do you just mean emotions, like negative feelings, or is it
It's
negative
kind of it's
interpretations?
kind of everything. It's sort of like again, it's sort of it's sentiment, right? It's not a specific measurable thing.
So it's
Although,
like negativity versus
yeah,
positivity.
yeah, yeah. In the
Okay.
research, they were coding very specific behaviors, eye rolls, criticism, you know, turning away, all that language. Um, but so there's observational behavior, but it's really just, I mean, for me, these people, you can tell within about 15 seconds whether the couple is in PSO or NSO,
Yeah.
whether they
Yeah.
have the energy, the aura, the attitude of, yeah, we can do this, or whether or not everything is a problem, and you know
Right.
that, and everything is trauma, and there's not like, nothing's going to change like that. It's a pretty quick tell,
Right. Right.
in the work. So
So where does it come from? I mean, I guess my question is this some tendency or characteristic of a person across their lifespan, or how much of it is about like this relationship? It seems to me that people would tend to have NSO in general,
yeah, 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 yeah.
that they're bringing in, like they've just got their brain has been trained in that sort of.
I mean, I think the answer is unsatisfying because it's close to something like it depends, or it's a
Yeah.
combination, or it's
Okay.
whatever. I mean, some people come out of they were trained early
Mm-hmm.
on in their traumatic environment to put on shit-colored glasses. Is a term that we use sometimes. Sorry
Yeah.
to
No, that's
say
fine. I swear all the
nasty
time.
words, but um, and sometimes I had a colleague introduce me to the phrase history-colored glasses. So people
Ah,
put on their history-colored glasses
right.
and they filter everything through their learned experience that things aren't going to work out, things are going to be harder, or
Yeah.
and they learn that in adaptive ways as children because they're trying to stay safe and sane, and nobody helped them appreciate that there are alternative ways. And I don't mean to say that in a kind of blanket way, because alternatively, you can come into a relationship with rose-colored glasses on. You can be really optimistic and positive and have a consistent lived experience over and over again of the relationship disappointing you or your partner disappointing you, and you can learn how to give up hope. You can
Yeah.
learn how to despair. You can learn how to criticize and become defensive. And again, those are still protective mechanisms protecting you against whatever it is that you can't abide in the
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And so the reality though is, and this is one of my favorite parts of the research, is being an NSO is actually, it's a distorted way of being alive. It's a false way of being on the planet. And here's how we know this. They I was John Gottman's brain is like a vault, right? He kind of remembers every single thing, and I kind of remember the the spirit of the thing. But the
Right.
spirit of the thing is they had couples behaving in their home, just had them observationally behaving in their home. And some of those couples were in PSO, they had positive sentiment. Some of those couples were in NSO, they had negative sentiment. And neutral observers were observing the positive behaviors that transpired between these couples. So, one thing that was not surprising was that couples who were in PSO had more positive behavior. So, more winks, more nods, more thank yous, more pats on the butts, more, you know. Um, Couples who were in NSO had fewer.
Right.
So let's say the couple in PSO had 100, couple in NSO had say 60. Not a surprise. That's an
Right.
easy thing to appreciate. They train couples to watch their own video back and count their positive interactions. Couples who were in PSO matched the neutral observer.
Mm.
So they also saw the 100, and they were able to hash mark, hash mark, hash mark. Couples who were in NSO missed about a half of
Yeah.
what the neutral observer saw. So not only was there less positive interaction, they also couldn't see it.
Right, right. We see what we expect to see, right? So
Well,
tons
and
of
which
stuff
is not
doesn't even
reality.
break, right, doesn't even break your awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in a negative frame of mind distorts reality, and that's a troubling that's a troubling thing to grapple with because
Yeah.
you're walking around going, oh, it's not gonna, and he's not gonna, and she's a, and that's just
And
not
they
real.
always, yeah,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah. So you have to train people to look for, just like you said, we see what we're looking for. You have to train people to look for positive interactions in their world or positive things in their world so that they can actually be more in touch with reality. And then working out of reality is more hopeful,
But
there's more
it's
likely out.
it doesn't surprise me that people would miss those positive behaviors in real time.
Hmm.
It's really interesting that they'd even miss it watching back on a video.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's, mind
Well,
blowing.
sure, because the neutral observer is like all of this counts, and you can look at this, and they trained them to look for it, and they just couldn't
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
And that's when you have your history colored glasses on, or you have your shit colored glasses on, or your trauma colored glasses on, like it just obscures reality. It
Yeah.
obscures your vision.
Yeah, and I suppose it's history colored glasses, whether it goes back to your family of origin and your upbringing, or whether it's just the start of this relationship, right? The history starts to perpetuate a cycle.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, you collect data and you make meaning out of that data, and then I'm in the habit now of asking couples like, um, they might say something. She might say something like, oh, this happened yesterday in my office. She asked him a question and he went, ugh, okay, yeah, I can figure that out. And what she heard was, ugh,
Yeah.
okay, I guess I can figure that out. And so he was like, no, that's not what I meant at all. What I meant was, oh, okay, right. Yes, 100% I can figure that out. And I've started asking her in this case, like, what if you heard the second thing? What if you suspended the thing you believe you heard
Yeah.
long enough to entertain that there might be another option?
Yeah.
What then opens up for you? Um, and now we have something to play with.
Yeah, this is so interesting because this is the nature of what I'm doing with couples all the time lately is how do we
Mm,
challenge these, slow this down? What meaning are we making? How
hmm
do we challenge that interpretation? How could there
hmm
something else be possible?
hmm
And you're right, so much of it's happening in real time where somebody reacts to something in the room and it's like, wow, that is not how I heard it.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny. People talk about tone. They're like, "Oh, I don't like her tone,"
Right.
or "You're using the tone," I'll just say, "Have I heard the tone?
Yeah.
Like, did they use the tone yet in here?" Oh yeah, it was like 2 minutes ago he used the tone, and I was like, because I noticed no tone.
Right.
Because tone is only interpretable. Tone isn't measurable.
Yeah, exactly.
Volume is
Exactly.
measurable, but tone is just interpretable. And I think part of managing negative sentiment override is taking the time to challenge your interpretations.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you do that with some creativity and some genuine curiosity, again, options open up for you. Like,
Right.
oh, I have different choices here,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think people ought to choose the one that lets them feel most like the thing they want to feel like. If they want to
This is
feel
this is exactly what I say to people. This is so
if they
interesting.
want to feel resentful and
Yeah.
defensive and gross, then sure,
Choose
go
this one.
ahead,
Right. Right.
choose it. If you want to feel generous and kind and optimistic, choose that one and see
Yeah.
what it solicits,
Yeah.
because it'll
Yeah.
solicit something from your partner one
Exactly.
way or the other. And, people don't, they, I mean, I think you should manipulate your partner, but I think you should manipulate your partner to solicit the good response you want from them
Right.
by
By
saying,
generating a good
you
response,
know,
right? Like by
like
leading that way. Yeah.
so.
So this is leading me to a question in my mind because I have had
Okay.
some clients, I imagine you have, who are resistant to challenging their thinking and their interpretations.
Hmm.
And I'm curious what you think about what's so threatening about this for people. Sometimes people are just so attached to it, but sometimes people are like, "Are you telling me there's no objective reality?" Like it, I get pushback on that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, when I get pushed back on that, I go, okay, you don't have to challenge your thinking.
Mm,
I don't know what you're doing here. I mean, you could just you could just go home and binge Netflix, and you don't have to challenge
Keep
anything.
doing the same thing. Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
here in this room, I'm under the assumption that the way that it's working for you, the way that you're doing it isn't working for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you, that's why you need to challenge your thinking. And then, and I'm not even sure we're going to get the result we're chasing, but what you're doing now, the thinking that you have now isn't getting the result you want.
Right.
And my time's expensive. And
Yeah, exactly.
and you have to hire a babysitter to be here in the middle of the day. And
Right.
and you had to drive here in traffic, and that was annoying. And if you would like to stop doing all that stuff, you need to change your thinking.
Yeah.
So and I'm super practical in that way. Like I don't get into a lot of like the meta like origin stories of challenging. I'm just sort of I'm like, you don't have to. You can
Yeah.
think exactly what you want all the time. You are allowed. It's just not going to get you the result that you want.
Right. Right.
And I think, the other thing is I actually say that because I want to empower my clients. I want my clients, both of them, because again, I'm working with couples all the time, to believe that the relationship can change because of what they do, not
Yeah.
because what their part like
Exactly. My
when
partner
people come in
needs
and
to
they're like, my
change, and then I'll
relationship will be
be
better if he changes.
right.
I'm like, okay, well, I hope that happens. I hope he does change. But could your relationship be better if you change? Well, probably. How? Well, I got to do this and that. Okay, well, why don't we do that? Why don't we control the thing we can control?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't
So
know if
why
I
did?
answered your question exactly, but that's the way I think about some of
Yeah.
those kind of resistances.
I just find it interesting that some people feel. I mean, I think the word I want to use is threatened. They haven't said that, but
Mm,
this idea that wow, if I challenge my reality, does this upend everything? I don't know. Sometimes people have a. It's not like they don't want to, but it's scary
it's
somehow to
easy
like.
to stay the same. I
Yeah.
mean, and I'm enamored of a guy named Stephen Pressfield, and he wrote the book called The War of Art. Um, Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War, but then
Right.
Stephen Pressfield was writing this book about creativity and how to write your novel and all this stuff. And one of the main theses is that when you sit down to write your novel, there's a malevolent, you know, powerful, creative force that rises up to stop you, and that force is resistance. And it shows up to tell you nobody's going to read your book. This is a waste of time. You should probably mow the yard.
Right.
You
Who are
forgot
you
to
to do this? Yeah.
forgot to binge your show last night. You know, and what he says at that point is that resistance is a gift because resistance is telling you the thing you're trying to do is important.
Yeah. Resistance trying to keep you safe by being the
Well,
same.
yeah, but
Yeah.
resistance doesn't show up when you're trying to binge Netflix, and
Right.
you're like, "Hey, man, I think I'm gonna watch 5 episodes of Arrested Development." Resistance doesn't go, "You shouldn't do that."
Right.
Resistance is like, "Go ahead. That sounds like a good thing." Resistance only shows up when the thing you're trying to do is important. So when
Yeah.
people come in and they talk about their resistance to change or they're feeling threatened by this thing, I go, "Of course, because it's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not threatened by things that aren't important." And um, so I love it. I'm like, great. I'm glad you recognize that because that's a gift. That's data
Yeah.
that says maybe you need to not do the easy thing, which is just think what you've always thought and never never challenge or change that.
Right. So in our primary relationships, like why is it that these distortions get so big or so powerful? It does seem maybe I should ask this first. Does this happen more with our partners or more intensely than other places in our life? And why is it that this relationship is so prone to negative interpretations?
Um, I think I think because well, probably two things. I started answering in my head the question you started asking that you then truncated and shifted, but I think we learn inside of our like home environments when we're young. We learn how to stay safe and sane. We create strategies to help us do that, and they're good. They serve us really well, and they help us stay safe and sane. We learn them in adolescence, and we use them, and they make us really good at stuff. They might make us a really great student, or a really great lawyer, or a really great street fighter, or whatever. And then we get into relationships with other people, and we we hope and want and desire that those relationships are intimate. And then the grind happens and you're there every single day. And when the grind happens, just like for athletes, they fall back to their muscle memory. They fall back on the thing that they know.
Mm.
And we fall back on all these adaptive strategies that we created that made us great street fighters or made us great lawyers, but didn't make us great intimate partners. And so I do it all the time. Like I have a very thorough story about my defensiveness. And when I am hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or when I'm distressed, or when I'm having a hard time in my relationship, I get defensive. It's so
Mm.
easy. It's so easy. It's also easy though because the consequences of being defensive in my home, this is a ridiculous thing to say, but it is true, aren't as high as the consequences of me being defensive in the job
Yeah.
market or as a
Yeah. Yeah.
at the grocery store or on the sideline or on the soccer field. Like if I'm playing soccer and somebody fouls me and I decide I'm not going to handle that, I'm going to foul them back worse, I'm going to get penalized. I'm going to get thrown out. But in my house, my wife's not going anywhere. My kids aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
We're in the grind. Like, and I don't mean it in a like a, but it's the safest place we have. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
safest places we have are the places that we act out the most. And
Right. We kind of let it all our caution or
my
care
wife's
down. Yeah.
not sorry, my wife. Although I'll tell you a funny story about that. My daughter, who is now 22, her kindergarten teacher taught me this because she was like, Abby is the most wonderful, well-behaved, on task student we've ever had. I'm like, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
This child is a maniac. She's a nightmare, and I can't even. And the teacher was like, oh, that's because she feels safe at home.
Mm.
She feels like she can like let it all down. And I was like, oh, well, that's good and terrible, and I hate that. But then, but I'm glad she feels safe, and that's kind of how most of us feel in our relationships. Is that it's at least a safe enough place for me to not be on my best behavior all the time.
Right. And yet, that's not really an excuse to not put in the
No,
effort to try to be on our
no, no,
best
no.
behavior, right? Like
Not
that's
as an
not
adult.
something. Yeah. Yeah.
As a child, sure.
Right.
For
Right.
Abby, that was an appropriate way for her to manage her unskilled, unevolved, like
Yeah. Still
unemotional intelligence.
developing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and this is the problem is that we don't spend time in our 20s learning how to graduate up into something like emotional intelligence with intention, right? We still brute force and ignorance for most of us, which
Yeah.
is why therapy is such a great tool, and or why I think they ought to put social emotional development learning into middle schools and high schools. So great, algebra and how World War II started. Fine, that's all great, but do you know how to manage these really challenging emotions that get stirred up within you? Because somebody didn't pass you a note in study hall, like
Right.
that. When we don't learn how to do that, we have to make it up, and the way we make it up is we practice with our partners. And sometimes we're fortunate enough to have several partners that we break up with before we choose the partner we're with. But sometimes we marry our high school sweetheart.
Yeah.
We raise each other, and that is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, maybe it's obvious from the conversation, but how can couples recognize that they're in NSO? I
Hmm.
mean, maybe it's just how they're feeling the
Yeah.
majority of the time, but like, what are those some signs? And then what do people start to do if they recognize this and want to take it on?
Yeah. I mean, I think people know when they're not happy. They just need to figure out how to ask for help. And that's something that I always say to my clients is that they are doing something that most couples aren't doing, which is asking for help.
Yeah.
And people who are listening to podcasts, they're looking for help, and that's the first thing is just to figure out like how do I get some more context, because when you're isolated and alone, the only thing that you're looking at is your bad relationship, then it's easy to feel overwhelmed by that and to despair. But you start asking for help, then we have some things that we can begin to do, and you know, um, part of it is cultivating internally inside yourself a practice of looking for the positive things, calling them out, naming them. Go to bed at night with a gratitude practice. And I'm not even trying to be like remedial about it, except that the word remedial and the word remedy share the same root.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something about doing basic
Yeah.
blocking and tackling to get yourself into a position where you can actually thrive. And that is, I think a personal internal commitment um, to looking for the positive. And I'm not even talking about being Pollyanna. I'm just saying like train your brain.
Hmm.
Um, because if you don't train your brain and then you try to do restorative or reparative work in the relationship, you're still showing up in a disadvantaged position or an injured position. And, you know, nobody in their right mind would try to go play soccer with a sprained ankle. I guess I would because I'm kind of whatever,
Yeah.
um, but it's unwise, right? Like, why would you start something that required you to be healthy if you weren't healthy? And so, um, I, I guess I'm also speaking to a little bit of if we go back to the Gottman method has sort of three primary buckets of competency for couples that are getting it right. And one of them is the quality of the friendship. One of them is the ability to manage conflict. And then one of them is around mission, vision, values. And those three represent, they hold the seven principles for making marriage work, which is John Gottman's most famous work. Um, but there's a lot of emphasis on like the friendship, building the friendship, going back to the friendship before you try to do conflict, before you try to solve problems, before you try to heal trauma. It's just establish basic fundamental regard and respect toward one another through curiosity, affection, and attention. That's what I always say. Through just remaining open and curious about your partner, through, you know, trying to love them in ways that are meaningful for them, and paying attention, just paying attention to one another. You start to do that stuff, you begin to drive up positive sentiment. I mean, that's how that
Right, right. That's what you'd
works.
be doing, right? Getting in touch with positives about each
Yeah.
other and with each
And
other.
then you get
Yeah.
above the line. And when you get above the line, you can start to do some of the harder things.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, people come in to our offices because they want to solve conflict. And I'm like, who wants to solve conflict? Your little adaptive, childish, traumatized version of you, or the version of you that has, future colored glasses on, that has some vision for optimism and hope and change, and then some capacity and commitment to execute. I mean, that's
Yeah.
if that person shows up, if those two people show up to try and work on conflict, then you have a chance.
Yeah.
But if the if the wounded, you know, childish, again, traumatized version of you shows up, we need to we need to triage that be, before you start to try and do the real reparative work.
Yeah. It does seem like this all starts with a buy-in that you've got a
Mm-hmm.
distorted
Yeah.
view. Like somebody
Yeah.
might know they're really unhappy and they're just thinking it's because their partner's doing this shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like it does seem like it has to start with maybe my view is distorted and I'm
Mm-hmm.
missing positives and I've got this negative
Mm-hmm.
override that's distorting
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. I usually tell people that in session one or
Yeah.
two. I'm like, look, this doesn't work if you don't buy in
Yeah.
to your responsibility in the equation. And that's funny. I had a couple just a couple weeks ago. They have not made their second appointment because I think they were really distressed
Yeah.
when I told them that, because for an hour they each told me how the other one was the root cause of their problem. And I finally just said, "Hey, if you want the relationship to improve, like that story has got to change, because that guy's not your problem.
Right.
He's part of your problem, but he's not your whole problem. Your whole problem, the biggest part of your problem is that you, even if he showed up today in a Superman outfit, you'd still you'd still criticize the color, like
Yeah.
so. Anyway, that's what I think
Okay.
about that.
Um, it's interesting to me. I haven't done the Gottman training, done
Yeah,
lots of other ones, but
yeah.
you mentioned the three different, I can't remember what you called them, three different buckets.
I call them buckets or competencies. Like again,
Okay.
the seven principles for making marriage work.
Okay.
They kind of break down into three areas of focus.
Right.
And
So
again, it's the
as a,
friendship, it's the ability to manage conflict, and then it's something about future
right,
vision,
right,
values,
right,
kind
right.
of thing. Yeah.
As a sex therapist,
Hmm.
I'm like, where's the sex in this? What's the
Yeah.
connection? I don't know if Gottman even talks about that, but it's like
Yeah.
to me, it's such an important bucket. So what's the connection between these either positive or negative perceptions and sentiment and your ability for
I mean,
thriving sex
honestly,
life.
I would say that the Gottman body of research doesn't effectively address sex's role in the relationship. It's
Hmm.
not part of the thing. Where it gets tucked in is in the idea that a healthy sex life emerges from a healthy friendship. It is part of the gig. The basis for a healthy sexual relationship is trust and friendship. And you know who I like to, this is who I kind of draw from the most is Emily Nagoski.
Hmm.
She's kind of my, I don't want to call her my hero, but she's my guru when it comes to thinking out loud about sex with clients. And that's her thesis. Her thesis is people who have a healthy sex life, they have a strong friendship and they prioritize their sex life. And so if you're going to draw a straight line back to the research, it really is about building fundamental respect and regard into the relationship in order to have a foundation for being able to prioritize maybe things that are hard, right? I'm not getting enough sex, or I'm not getting the kind of sex that I want, or I'm not getting, um, I'm not getting enough emotional connection to lead to. I mean, like all of this is tied together. But there is, of course, a whole avenue of sexual expression that thrives in negative sentiment override because people use sex to mitigate their negative feelings. I
Hmm.
mean, that's also part of it. I don't know if you were sort of keen to this mini phase that I guess happened to maybe about 10 years ago, but there's fight, flight, or fix. And for about a half a second, there was this trend to add fuck
Right.
because it started with F,
Right.
um, but also because it represented the flight to pleasure
Yeah.
in response to some of these relational wounds. And so it was still a traumatic response and it still was unhealthy. Um, I think it, I don't think it got any traction because people weren't super duper interested in being vulgar, and also because it still is in the flight category.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. That's where my brain goes when you ask that
Well, I
question.
mean, sometimes it could be a flight to pleasure, but sometimes I think it could be a grasping for some sort of connection. Like maybe we can get,
100%.
above or below the conflict and connect with each other in
Yeah.
some way. Yeah,
100%.
I don't think it's always negative, but
Well, and who knows? I mean, totally. And it could be real,
hmm.
like when we have a really hard time connecting emotionally or intellectually because our kids are demanding so much of us, our weekly exercise, and I mean that literally, the using sex as exercise is a way that we stay connected. That's on the menu from time to
Right.
time.
Right.
And maybe it is void of like real connection. But if that works, that works.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not one to, what is it, yuck somebody's yum because
Right.
it works for them. But sure, sometimes I definitely have a couple of, I've had the experience of couples in my practice who like they're like, oh, our sex life is not an issue at all. Like we have enthusiastic sex, it's amazing. We have it 3 times a week. We just don't know how to talk to each other.
Right.
We just don't feel emotionally connected. And I'm like, okay, well, check. At least we don't have to worry about that
I
part of
think
it.
that's less common than we're having so much trouble in our relationship that, we don't want to have
A hundred
sex.
percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No doubt.
Yeah. But it does seem if somebody's in the midst of NSO or a couple together is so negative and focused on the negativity, it's going to have an impact on their ability to show
Yes.
up and truly connect,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or to feel safe while attempting to connect for sure.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
All right. So if somebody's listening and is
Mm-hmm,
starting to entertain the idea that their
mm-hmm,
brain might be distorting things
mm-hmm,
and they've started to see way more negative than positive,
mm-hmm.
what would be your initial suggestions of things they could change right away, that they could try, that they could start to spin that in reverse?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of them I've already mentioned. It's little things like, create a practice of intentionally looking for the things that are going well,
Yeah.
um, that you can celebrate, that you can be grateful for. I mean, and it's there, right? Like, thank you for unloading the dishwasher. Costs nothing.
Yeah.
Um, you look cute in those jeans.
So it's not just noticing, it's also expressing to
I
your
mean,
partner. Yeah.
I mean, there's some debate about how this exactly works, but if you have a sort of a muscle memory in your brain, or if you have these neural pathways that are inclined to just sort of highlight the negative, it begin to shift them. And if you need to use your mouth, use your mouth. You need to
Hmm.
use your eyes, but you got to use your brain for sure, which is something. So my wife is a part of a little group of girlfriends, and they send each other, I think, 3 gratitudes a day via text. There's about 6 of them,
Oh,
and they
wow.
just they wake up or at night, and they're all accountable to each other just to talk about like these are things I'm grateful for. And this is just in the midst of like the world. It's not even about the marriage. It's just like what's
Right,
going
right,
on
right.
in the ether. They're trying to figure out how to look for the little sunshiny sort of things. So that's kind of a simple one. Um, I think that the the kind of the values that I elevate for clients out of the research is the value of curiosity.
Hmm.
And the value of curiosity is not simply like in the Gottman method, there's a big kind of interventionary notion of learning how to ask questions, right? Like just ask about, um, you know, how their day was going, or ask about what bands they're listening to right now, or ask about how their friendships are, or whatever. I think there's also something about cultivating curiosity, meaning I am willing to entertain that what I think or what I think isn't real.
Yeah,
And so what options are available to me? And
yeah.
I actually have a lot of fun with clients in this way because, and I don't, this is going to get me fired probably, but I have a, I have a guy, and one of the things that he uses me for, which is fine, I've given him permission to do this, is he texts me these long, like I'm about to lose my mind with my wife texts, and I cut it and I paste it into Chat GTP, and I say, give me 3 possible responses here. Give me an unhealthy response, give me a neutral response, give me a really emotionally intelligent response, and I get them back and I cut them and I paste them and I send them back to this guy, and I'm like, hey dude, um, read these, try them on, see which ones feel best to you, see what
Yeah.
you like, see what feels hard, but he at that point he is first of all by by lashing out at me instead of her, he's created a pause. And second of all, by then me just kind of returning this thing back to him, this robot advice, he gets to consider options, and he gets to try out what options are going to feel best to him.
Hmm.
And he's learning how to think about possible alternative responses to his fight or flight impulse.
Yeah,
And I think that is amazing. Like when people learn how to do that, they get so much more leverage and power in the relationship.
yeah,
Um, so again, I think if you, number one, if you, as an individual, I'm not even talking to couples yet, but as an individual, if you want to shift sentiment in the relationship, you got to look for it. You got to look for the positive things. You got to retrain your brain. And number two, you have to like consider options. You have to literally like learn how to be curious about not just your partner, but your own responses, where they're coming from, and which ones feel like you need to cultivate.
yeah. And on a similar note, I play a game with, well, sort of a game, what I call seven other explanations.
I love it
So if your
already.
interpretation is the socks are on the floor, and it's like,
Yeah.
God damn it, he never listens to me. It's totally
Yep.
disrespect. You're often
Yeah.
running with his interpretation. What are 7 others?
I love it.
And that's a lot to come
I'm
up
stealing
with.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But each one, it's like,
Yeah.
again,
He
they're all just,
forgot. He put them there as part of a scavenger hunt.
he's ADD. He was
He's
rushing to work for a
ADD.
meeting. He's
Yeah.
colorblind. He couldn't see them on the floor. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then because
Well,
they're
and
all stories, which one
and
sets you up to show up in the best way and to
and
feel the
when I do,
best?
yeah, totally. And when I do that, I actually when I do it with couples, if I were to, I mean, I'm gonna steal this. I'm gonna
Totally.
say
I
there's
didn't
7.
make it up. So,
But when if I'm gonna rattle off 7, 3 of those are gonna be really positive.
right.
He's creating a scavenger hunt for me.
Yeah.
He is trying to remind me that I need to unload the dishwasher, and he's doing it in a gentle, non-critical way. Like whatever it is. Like,
Right.
and then
Right.
if you attach that and you come in and you start going, my husband creates scavenger hunts for me. That is the coolest thing. I love this guy. And then if it's not real, it's fine. But at
Right.
least it changes your
Changes how you show up and
change
how
how
you feel.
you open your mouth next, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, the example I use with clients all the time is somebody cuts you off in the traffic, and your
uh-huh.
first thought
Me
might
too.
be,
Me too.
what a dick,"
Yep.
But it's
Yep.
like, what if they're racing their kid to the emergency room?
Yeah,
Like you have an
totally.
entirely different visceral
Well, and
experience
then
with
what
that.
I do that because I'm that guy. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I go, what a dick. And then what I've learned how to do is without even thinking about him, I go, wonder what happens if I roll the window down right now, get some fresh air. I wonder what happens if I listen to this song, like really listen to this
Mm,
song. I wonder what happens if I just take my foot off the gas and slow down a little bit. Like what happens to me?
yeah.
I'm not even worried about him. I'm
Right.
still going, I wonder if I can just seize the the presence, be present in this moment with my little box that I'm in. And he doesn't have to make me feel good or bad,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Powerful stuff. I really, I
I'm
love
into
this
it.
work, you know?
Yeah, me
I mean,
too. It's fun. It's fun
all
stuff.
right. So where can people reach you? Where are you licensed, and like what do you want to share
Yeah,
that you
no,
might have available?
the internet is, I mean, if you know how to spell my name, I think I'm the only Zach Brittle in there out there. But I'm at zachbrittle.com. That's where my private practice is, and I'm licensed in Washington State, so I can see clients here. And then, but I have a weekly podcast that comes out every week. It's called Marriage Therapy Radio, and I spend time on that podcast interviewing couples. So they come on, and I just talk to them about whatever their life is, and I've got tons of stories from all over the spectrum. Um, and then I just started restarted a blog that I started, I don't know, a decade ago. It's called Stuff I Write, stuffIwrite.com. So if they just want to see stuff I write
Yeah.
about, which is not relational, often it's a movie or a song or some weird reflection that I have about whatever. So that's me in a nutshell.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Fun time.